I've given you my take on the $24 billion worth of Easter eggs handed out by the PM and the opposition leader yesterday. Now it's time for your favourite. That's right, a favourite here at 4BC Mornings to have his say. The unconventional economist, Leith Van Onselen, is on the line. Leith, very good morning to you. How did you read yesterday's Easter egg giveaway?
Yeah, g'day, Ben. Look, to be honest with you, mate, I thought both sides were absolutely deplorable. This is probably the worst policy making, or some of the worst policy making I've seen in my 47 years of life. Just to at a top level, Australia already has some of the most expensive housing in the world. Our households are among the most indebted households in the world, and then we've got both sides of government basically pouring fuel on the housing bonfire through these demand-side policies that are just going to send prices higher, mean that Australians are going to take out larger mortgages and become even more indebted, and then the taxpayer is going to be on the hook. It seems like both sides are just intent on blowing the biggest housing bubble in the world. It's crazy.
All right, step us through that then, Leith. Why will these policies inflate housing prices? Unpack it for us.
Yeah, okay. So first of all, we've got the Albanese government, which has effectively announced a state-sponsored subprime mortgage scheme. So the Labor's promised to allow all first home buyers to purchase a home with only a 5% deposit. So under current system, they need a 20% deposit. They can get a lower deposit if they take out lenders' mortgage insurance. But under the government scheme, all first home buyers will be able to buy with a 5% deposit, and with the government, or i.e. taxpayers, guaranteeing the other 15%. And what this will effectively do is it will bring more buyers into the market. It will mean that their borrowing capacity will go up, and it's going to bid up house prices, increases demand, obviously, and it's going to make housing structurally less affordable because prices will go up. So effectively, we're going to have more money chasing the same number of homes, which means that prices go up. And we've seen this in the since the turn of the century, with first home buyer grants and all these other things. Governments have always tried to bring these demand-side policies, and all they've ended up doing is just pushing prices higher, and Australians take out bigger mortgage debts, and the housing affordability situation just seems to get worse and worse because prices keep, running further away from incomes. And then the coalition's policy is a bit different, but it's also equally stupid in different ways. And they want to make mortgages tax deductible on interest paid on the first $650,000 for first home buyers who purchase new homes. And, so under the coalition's policy, all first home buyers earning up to $175,000 if you're a single, or $250,000 if you're a couple, will be able to effectively, negatively gear effectively owner-occupied new home purchase. And it's actually it's better than Labor's in one respect, in that it only applies to new homes. So as a result, it should actually boost supply a little bit. But it's worse from a budget sustainability perspective, because we've already, the federal budget's projected to be in deficit for the next decade. And this is effectively going to strip more tax out of the system. And it's going to mean we're going to have a bigger budget deficit. And it's also regressive in that, what I mean by regressive, it's inequitable in that the more you earn, the bigger your tax break. So effectively it hands out bigger tax breaks to higher income earners. So the coalition actually estimated that a first home buyer earning $120,000 a year with a $650,000 mortgage would save around $12,000 a year on their tax. And that's obviously $12,000 a year that the government doesn't get in income tax. So it's going to blow a bigger hole in the budget. It's going to push up new home prices because we're going to have all this extra demand, and all it's going to end up happening is a bit like when we started the pandemic with the new home grants, etc. It's just going to push up the price of new housing because developers will add it to the price. You're going to have more demand bidding up new housing estates. We've already got limited supply anyway because you don't have enough builders. There isn't the cost of construction have gone up 40% since the pandemic. We're just going to add more demand to that, which is going to inflate new home prices. So we will probably get a few more homes built, but they're going to cost more, and then that'll be inflationary across the whole housing market as well. So we've got basically both parties throwing taxpayer fuel onto the housing bonfire, adding to demand, which is ultimately is going to be inflationary for home prices. It's going to lead to Australians carrying bigger mortgages than they otherwise would, so we're going to be more indebted, and the federal budget's going to be in a worse position. So this is just stupid policy. And, it's not really it's not a supply side policy. They are demand side policies. They're all about boosting demand, which also ends up being capitalised into higher prices. When really the optimal solution here is both sides should significantly cut immigration, because if you do that, you take demand out of the market. You'll lower rents. It's better for first home buyers, because first home buyers will be spending less on rents while they're trying to save up for a home, which means they can save up quicker. It also would put downward pressure on the cost of houses as well. So not just rents, but also the price side. And ultimately, this is what Australians want. Australians don't want this high immigration. We don't want our cities to keep growing in size and becoming mega cities. And we don't want future Australians to have to live in high-rise shoebox apartments. But neither side is really tackling the immigration problem properly. The coalition's better than Labor on this. They've at least, proposed some modest cuts. But instead of, attacking the problem at the source, which is that we've got a housing shortage because we keep growing the population a lot faster through immigration than we can build homes, they're instead pouring taxpayer fuel onto the housing bonfire through these demand-side policies. It's crazy policy here.
And this is why, Leith, I love listening to you when you jump on with Bill normally, just to break it all down for us. But also, we know that now that they are both equally stupid policies. You're not going to get the other side fighting against each other and trying to pick it apart, because they both have so negative downsides to it that they'll be picking apart their own arguments and not addressing the demand issue or the supply issue going along. That's housing. What about the taxation goodies put in the Easter basket yesterday? What was the LNP? $1,200 tax offset. While Labor said no more receipts needed, no more scrolling through your bank statements over the last 12 months, $1,000 straight up on the tax return.
Yeah, look, again, much for mushes here. So it's really Pepsi Coke here. There's not a whole lot of difference. It's slightly different ingredients, slightly different tastes, but pretty much the same. Both very bad for your health, and are also going to be bad in the long term. Again, I get back to this point. We've got the federal budget is in structural deficit. It's projected to remain in deficit for the next decade, and so there isn't enough, taxation revenue to cover the costs effectively. And then you have both sides through not just the housing, but through this other stuff. Basically throwing more, basically eroding the tax base even more, which means we're going to have bigger budget deficits. And it seems like having longer election campaigns is actually a bad thing, because the longer this goes, the more of these taxpayer bribes we're getting, and ultimately they're just going to make the budget be in a larger deficit. And in the case of this housing stuff, we're just getting really poor policy as well. So, yeah, it's not a great situation. Unfortunately, neither side really wants to address the real issues in the country. I will give the coalition credit, though. Their gas reservation policy is excellent. Their energy policy is far superior to Labor's. So there's definitely a tick there, and I prefer the coalition immigration. At least they're offering to reduce it a little bit, whereas Labor just, seems to be open borders, an open borders party. But apart from that, both sides are pretty lacklustre on everything. It's
echoed here. Like, nothing is moving the needle. The energy policies, cost of living. How much is that going to resonate though to the Gen Z, the millennial voters? That now the overwhelming support, not supporter base, but the overwhelming voting base, outnumbering the rest of us now, because that's where these policies yesterday were targeted at. But are they going to resonate? Do you think that the energy policies in the cost of living side of things?
Well, they certainly should. I mean, I've often argued that without reliable and affordable energy, the economy is absolutely stuffed.
Yeah.
Right. You cannot have a prosperous modern economy without reliable and affordable energy. And really, it's the bedrock of the economy in so many different ways. Like, you can't maintain the manufacturing sector unless your energy costs are competitive with the rest of the world. And unfortunately, Australia shot itself in the foot there. And so, millennials and everyone else certainly should care about that, and it should be front of mind. Unfortunately, it's kind of a boring area, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's also presented as being quite complex, when it's actually very simple. And unfortunately, these sorts of housing gimmicks and all the other gimmicks that are out there just seem to steal all the oxygen. And it's also not helped in that the gas cartel and the energy lobby, as soon as the coalition announced the gas reservation scheme, came out and muddied the waters with a whole bunch of spurious arguments, arguing that that the policy won't work, etc. This was also lashed upon by outfits like the ABC, which ran the energy cartel's line, unfortunately, and has for some reason come out against reservation. I think they've done it because the coalition announced it. If it was Labor, they'd be all over it. There are a lot of mixed messages out there, but the coalition's energy policy is very good. But unfortunately, it's getting drowned out by all this other stuff. And, as we know, with elections, you never vote on one topic, even though to me, and it's probably because I've been covering this for so many years, but to me, the energy policy of the coalitions is the reason why I would preference them above Labor, above all other policies. But unfortunately, I don't think that resonates with the ordinary Australian voter, because I just don't think they understand the importance of it.
And that's the thing, the TikTok generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, I mean, gimmicks is what they're used to. Gimmicks is what it's all about for them. So that's, to me, why they're pitching this stuff and hoping for that one knockout blow, that one knockout shot, one thing to hook in a voter right now, and that bigger base that's growing, that's why they're trying to do it. There's a lot of gimmicks and not much substance. Hey, Leith, thanks for unpacking it, mate, making the complex very simple. Appreciate you jumping on. Leith Van Onselen, the unconventional economist.